Hello, hello. Welcome to Lynne and Craig's English Chat live, coming to you from Valencia, Spain. We're here to improve your English, widen your vocabulary and your grammar, and supercharge your listening skills. We're going to help you with all aspects of your English. If it's your first time watching, you're very, very welcome. And hello if you're watching the replay. My name's Craig from mansioningles.com, where if you're a Spanish speaker, you can study English for free. And we also have a podcast that you'll find at inglespodcast.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're interested in improving your speaking, I'm going to start new speaking courses next week for different levels. So if you're interested in being a more effective speaker and you'd like to join me and a group of lovely people online on Zoom, then send me an email or go to the website englishcraig.com and I'll give you my email address later in the stream. And just over there, on the other side of Valencia, next to me, is my good friend Lynne from putitlikethis.com. Hi, Lynne.
Hello, Craig. Hi. Nice to be here again. It's been a couple of months, hasn't it, since we've done
been a while.
live stream.
Yes.
So it's nice to be back. And hello, everyone. I can see some people are joining already. We'll say hello. I think I can see some new people. But just before we do the introductions, I better introduce myself in case you don't know who I am. So my name is Lynne. My company is called my little business is called putitlikethis.com. And I'm an online English teacher and trainer. And I kind of specialize in tailor making courses to fit the students. So the thing is, I like to, if you're interested in learning English, you probably have a specific reason why you want to learn English. Maybe it's to do an exam, or maybe it's to make presentations at work, or maybe it's for travel because you like traveling and making friends, or you need more functional English. So if whatever you have as an objective, then usually I find out what those objectives are, and then I create a course specifically to try to help you achieve those objectives. I have a website, which is putitlikethis.com. So if you go there, you can have an idea a little bit more about the types of courses that I do. And every couple of weeks I do this live stream with him. with him me. There, where Craig and I used to be old colleagues for many years, and so we still like teaching together. So we like to do this every couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's a great way for Lynne and I to keep in touch and see each other, and also to help you with your English. Now, if you're watching live, please say hello and tell us where you're from. And if you're watching the replay, you can also write in the chat and read what people are asking us and different comments that people are making during the live stream. And we've already got some people in here saying hello from all over the world. We've got Arturo from Honduras.
Oh, hello, hi, Arturo. Hello to Honduras. We have Gemma. Hello, Gemma.
Hi, Gemma.
It's nice to see you again. Gemma's from Madrid, I think, aren't you, Gemma? Yeah, I think she's in Madrid, Gemma. Somebody from Paris. Wow.
Nakame Fofana from Paris.
Somebody from Chile, Herman. Hello, Herman. Janka from Slovakia.
Wow.
And there's also somebody called Javi, I think. I don't know where you're from, but hello anyway.
Hello and welcome. We're going live on YouTube, LinkedIn and Facebook. So again, if you're watching live, come in and say hello. And if you have any questions while we're speaking today, then of course write your questions and we will get to them and answer them if we can.
And we've got somebody from Peru. Oh, Javi's in Peru. Huascar is also in Peru, but he's in Barcelona right now. And there was somebody else, Saida from Turkey. Hello, welcome.
Fantastic. Well, wherever you are in the world, wherever you happen to be, I'm sure that's something that's very, very important for you, and that's money. And that's going to be our topic today.
And here's a little question for you. That little phrase there, money, 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 must be funny. Can anybody complete the line? It's a very famous line from a very famous lyric from a song from ABBA. Does anybody know? Maybe you can type it in the chat.
I work all night, I
He
work all
said,
day to pay the
"No
bills I
money,
have to
no
pay.
honey."
No money, no honey.
That's a different song. I don't know that one, Javi, but it's not the song I'm thinking of.
I'll give you a hint. I work all night, I work all day to
Okay.
pay the bills I have to pay. Ain't it
hmm
sad?
hmm
And still there never seems to be a single penny left for me.
For me, oh wow, you can remember a lot, Craig.
I've got it written here in my
Oh,
notes.
you got it in your notes. I can't remember all the words in this song, but there we are. Yanka's got it. She said that it's in the rich man's, not in the rich man's word, but in a rich man's world. Must be funny in a rich man's world. So, in the world of a rich man, it must be strange to be in the world of a rich man. That's what the song's all about. But
Exactly.
anyway, that's
So,
right.
yep. Today we're
Okay.
going to talk about
hmm
money, what we
hmm
do when we have it, what do we do when we don't have it. We'll look at some vocabulary and ask you some questions about the topic of money.
hmm hmm Okay. So first of all, though, before we start, it's quite strange. Craig and I thought about this when we were preparing this, and that, do you think that money is a taboo subject? Sometimes people don't like to talk about money. Is it a taboo subject for you? Taboo means you can't do it, you can't talk about it. Is money a taboo subject for you, Craig? Or do you talk about money easily? Maybe the rest of you can maybe tell us your opinions too. Do you think it's a good idea to talk about money with friends and family?
I think it is a good idea to talk about money, and I think it can be a taboo topic inside families, for example, especially if you're going to talk about what happens if one person passes away and unfortunately
Ah,
dies, what happens to the
mhm.
money, and that's something that my parents never wanted to talk about. It's a very sensitive
Yeah,
thing, like what's going to
okay.
happen to the money. Obviously, with salaries, it's not always polite to
Mhm,
ask somebody how much money they earn.
mhm,
And also in a relationship, you might not want to talk about who's spending what and you're spending too much money on this. And is it
mhm,
a good idea to spend money on that? So even between couples, it could be a bit of a
mhm,
taboo topic, don't you
mhm.
think?
Yeah, I think it is. I don't find it very easy to talk about money with people. I mean, obviously, I think the person I speak about it with the most openly is my husband, really. Um, but with friends, I think the problem with money is that sometimes it brings up emotions in people. And I think money can sometimes, well, the first thing that money does is when you talk about money, a lot of people judge people according to money. And so it can kind of like, when you talk a lot about money, it can bring up jealousy, you know? People might start thinking you don't deserve that much money, that you have too much money. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Sometimes they compare themselves to you, better or for worse. They consider themselves more superior or more inferior. Uh-huh.
that's
So
true.
I think it's to do with the fact that money makes people less equal. Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's why it's not, sometimes it's not nice to actually talk about it, because when we don't talk about it, then we don't have to judge each other so much. I
That's a
mean, you
very good
shouldn't have
point.
to judge anybody anyway, but
But we
I
do, we
think
do.
it, but we
Even if
do.
you're working in the same profession or for the
Uh-huh.
same company and one person's earning more money than the other person has a
Mhm,
higher salary, you think, well, that's not fair. Why that
mhm.
person shouldn't? That person's younger than me. Why is that person earning more money? And
Yeah.
all kinds of
Mhm.
jealousies
Yes, and even
arise.
within relationships too, because if you talk about a lot about the money, then you think, does one person deserve to spend more money than the other? Um, you know, It's tricky, isn't it? I think
It's
it's quite
very,
tricky.
very
Mhm.
tricky. Hemo, I don't know what's happening with your sound there, but maybe if you're having problems on Facebook, try connecting through YouTube or through LinkedIn if you're connected to me via those other platforms. I
Mhm.
honestly don't know why you're not hearing us when you
Mhm.
write.
Mhm.
Javi says it's sometimes overwhelming to talk about salaries. Yeah,
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
is. That's a nice use of that word, overwhelming. It's too
Mhm.
much.
Mhm.
It's too heavy. It's too much of a problem
Mhm.
to talk
And it's
about it.
interesting with salaries because a lot of employers don't want you to talk about salaries with other employees.
Yes.
And I think that's another thing. It's kind of secretive, isn't it?
Hmm.
And which is, I think, is wrong, really. But I mean, that I know that lots of companies do that. They don't allow you to talk to other people about your salaries. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Shada, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Shada says, I think when it comes to talk about salary, it could be taboo. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah,
exactly what we've just said.
that's right.
Hi, Lindsay. Good to see you here, Lindsay. Money issue in a relationship shows who wears the pants in this relationship.
Hmm.
Yeah. Who wears the
Because money,
pants?
because money is power, isn't it? Really, if you have a lot of money, usually you have a lot of power over
Hmm.
people, and maybe that's another reason why it really is taboo, because if you're with your friends and your family, you don't want to have that kind of power, more power. I mean, there's always power in every relationship, but
What's interesting in Lindsay's message is I know she's based in America, in the US, and she said, who wears the pants? Of course, in UK
ah,
English, we would say, who wears the trousers?
yes, that's
Who
true.
who's the boss? The
Uh-huh.
person who's the boss in the relationship
Mhm,
wears the trousers, or
mhm.
in the US wears the pants. Yeah.
In British English, Lindsay, it's very funny when we hear who wears the pants in the relationship, because I would say, I hope that both people have their pants on, because the pants in English are the underwear. So
Yes.
one would hope that people have pants on. Yeah.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
good. I'm pleased that you've
Uh-huh.
solved the problem. Gemma's with us now. She's managed to
Mhm.
solve
Oh,
the
well
problem.
done, Hannah. Great.
Okay,
Right.
let's look at some
Okay.
vocabulary then.
Mhm,
Lots of words and expressions to do with money. Here
mhm,
are some of them. If you have
mhm,
no money, you
mhm,
say in British English, you're broke.
mhm,
I have no money whatsoever. I'm completely broke this
mhm,
month. Just think of the word break, like your finances are broken. If you
mhm,
say that I'm broke, that means you have no money.
mhm. And then you'll see that we have lots of euphemisms about money. I think it's because, again, because it's this taboo subject, we don't talk about it directly. So we have lots of like metaphorical things. So, for example, we say money is tight at the moment.
Money's too
Now, when
tight to mention. Simply read.
money, another lyric, money's too
Money's
tight
too
to
tight to
mention.
mention.
So when money is tight, it means that you haven't got a lot of it and you're kind of holding on to what you have because you have to be careful. So
Mhm.
money is tight means that you cannot like open your hands and spend it easily.
And if you're
Mhm.
strapped, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily completely broke. You have some money,
Mhm.
but none to spare.
Mhm.
So if you're a bit strapped, notice how it's modulated by using a bit,
Mhm.
a little bit, a bit. Not
Mhm.
completely, but a bit.
A
I'm a
bit.
bit strapped for cash
I
means
think
that you
that
don't have.
Uh, sorry,
Go
Craig.
ahead.
I think that's very similar to money is tight, because a strap is something that that restricts you. You have on your luggage cases, you have a strap around them to stop them exploding or to stop them opening. A strap is fastened, and I think when we say money is tight or I'm a bit strapped, I also have the impression that you can't easily spend your money.
You
And we
can't
can
let
also
your hair
say
down, yeah?
money is a bit tight as well. Hmm.
And very similar is I'm short of cash. So I don't
Hmm.
have a lot of spare cash. I don't have any extra money.
Hmm.
I'm short of cash at the
Hmm.
moment. And to make ends meet means that you can manage with the money you have. So if you can make ends meet, you pay your bills, you buy your food, you meet your expenses. But if you can't do that, if you can't make ends meet, you don't have enough money. So
Mm-hmm.
this month I can't make ends meet. I need to borrow some money to get me to the end of the month.
Mm-hmm. And then there's this nice little phrase, I'm getting by, but just. Now, I'm getting by means you are managing with your money, that you can pay your bills, yeah, you are making ends meet. But then when we say but just, that means really you're strapped. You're strapped, or you're a little bit short of cash. It means you are managing to get to the end of the month, but really you're having difficulty. You don't have to quite borrow money, but nearly. Maybe I'm getting by, but just.
And that phrasal verb to get by is very common, and it's often followed by the preposition on. So to get by on your salary is to have enough money to manage to meet your needs. You can also use a number. Can you get by on €3,000 a month where you live? Can you get by on $6,000 where you live? Can you manage on that amount of money? Can you get by on your salary?
Then we have, I think this is very British English, isn't it? To say I'm skint. That
Yes, I
sounds
think
very
so.
British
Well,
English.
let's ask Lindsay. Have you heard
Lindsay
that in
might know.
America? Lindsay, I'm skint. Have you heard that in the States?
I'm skint, and that really essentially means you're broke, and we had to be broke. Then we've got I'm broke again. And then we have like a very official, formal word, which is bankrupt. So you could say they're bankrupt or I'm bankrupt. But bankrupt is, it's kind of like a legal state of affairs. So it's usually for companies, but it can be for individual people too. But if you are a company and you have no more money and you owe a lot of money to a lot of suppliers, for example, or clients, and there is no way that you can pay those people, probably the banks have decided they won't lend you any more money because you haven't got good credit, then officially you have no option, but you have to declare yourself legally bankrupt, which means that you have no viability, no more cash possibilities to pay anything. Is that right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's good. That's good description. Exactly.
And then you don't, I don't know what happens to you. Do you go to prison or
Well, it
what
depends
happens
where
to
you
your bankrupt?
live. If you
Okay.
live in the US and you have a company and you declare bankruptcy, bankruptcy is the noun, and the collocation is to declare it. You declare bankruptcy. If the company is not in your name, then nothing happens. You just open another company in a different name. But
Oh, okay,
I
that's cool.
I don't think that's true in every country. In some countries, you
No,
need to take responsibility if
ability.
your company goes bankrupt, and you need to pay your debts. So if you owe money, and I've put that verb in the chat, to owe money, then obviously you owe it to the bank or you owe it to investors, and you need to pay your debts. Be careful of debt because it has a silent B, which you don't pronounce. Your debts. Pay your
Those
debts.
debts.
And the last one there is wiped out. If you're completely wiped out, imagine wiping all of your money away, then you're cleaned out, you're wiped out, you have nothing, you're broke. So to be broke, to be wiped out are very, very similar.
And I don't think with all of this vocabulary, everyone, it's not necessary that you learn all of it in order to use it, right? But you do need to recognize it, because usually people have their own familiar way, the way you pick one and that's the one you use. What do you use, Craig, from those? I bet you
I
don't
would
use all of them.
say broke I wouldn't
Uh-huh.
say strapped.
You
That's
wouldn't say
not
strapped.
no.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, I know what it means, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't use it. And that's a good point, Lynn. That
Mm-hmm.
you've got vocabulary that's your passive vocabulary that you understand and you know what it means. But
Mm-hmm.
you've also got your active vocabulary, and those are the words you actually use when you're speaking and when you're writing. So I would probably, in my active vocabulary, I'm short of cash. I can't make ends meet. I'm broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't necessarily use money's tight or I'm a bit strapped. I might say I'm
Mm-hmm.
skint because I'm British,
Mm-hmm.
but those are the ones I'd use. What about you?
Me, I think I use more money is tight. Money is a bit tight. Uh-huh. I don't think I'd use skint, and I know I wouldn't use wiped out. I think that's more American. Sounds more American to me. Uh-huh.
Hmm.
I'm getting by. Uh-huh. Are you getting by? I use that a lot. And to be broke. Uh-huh.
Got
Okay.
some comments coming in. Time
Mm-hmm.
is money. That's a very popular idiom, a very popular
Mm-hmm.
phrase. Time is money. And question: is money freedom? So
Mm.
because it's a question, Leticia, I would change the order. Is money freedom,
Mm-hmm.
or is it slavery?
Slavery.
Are we
Mm-hmm.
a slave to money, or does it set us free? What do you think, Lynn?
Uh-huh.
It's a
That's
nice
a very
question.
philosophical question, isn't it? um, huh. Yeah, it's tricky. I think when you have a lot of money, then, well, I don't know actually. I'm not sure. I think it's both, isn't it? It is freedom in the sense that when you have money, you you are free to do the things that you want to do. If you want to travel, or if you want to work, or if you want to,
Mm,
spend money in a certain way, of course it gives you freedom. But it is true actually that if you have too little money, it's like being a slave. And I think if you have too much money, it's also like being a slave
hmm.
because it seems to capture all of your attention. So there's probably, for me personally, I think there's probably a medium. I can't put a figure on it. But I think there would probably be a medium amount of money that would probably make me happy. And to be frank, it's probably what I've got now, I think.
Mm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think as long as you've got your basic needs
Mhm.
met, and there's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that triangle that you may have seen,
Oh,
where you've
okay.
got
Uh-huh.
the basic needs of life at the bottom. So
Mhm.
shelter, food, warmth, clothing, a
Mhm.
roof over your head. If you've got those basic things, then when you go up from that, then you should be happy. Like if you've got
Mhm.
those basic things keeping you alive and keeping you more or less comfortable, then you should be able to be happy. And then it goes up to more abstract psychological
Mhm. Mhm.
things at the
Mhm.
top. But I agree with
Mhm.
you, Lynn. I think there is a minimum of amount of money that you need to be happy.
Mhm.
And then if you have too much money, you become a slave to it. You're not sure who
Mhm.
your friends are. You don't know who you
Mhm.
can trust. And then, you're,
Yeah, and it's kind of like, because I look at the people now, like you see in the news, who are the multi-billionaires and things. And to be frank with you, they don't seem happy people. They're always tweeting horrible things on Twitter and things. And I think they don't really seem to be living a happy existence, to be
no,
frank,
they,
do
they,
they?
they
Because
don't
they
seem
can be
happy.
quite nasty, these very, very rich people.
You're right.
So, yeah, so maybe it's not good.
I'm not sure what heavy means with this question. You get embargoed, or statement, you get embargoed, you lose your house,
You
maybe?
leave your
You
house.
lose your
When
house.
when you're, I think that's embargoed comes from. I know it's in other languages. I don't know. It's
Mm,
not in Spanish, is it? Maybe it's in German. I don't know. But it's what it means is that your house is taken away from you. You have to forfeit your house,
repossessed,
repossessed,
foreclosed.
repossessed. Could you put that in? Uh, and that is if you get bankrupt, then of course you have to take responsibility for your debts. And so the bank takes all your possessions, all your assets, like your house and everything. Yeah, Javi says it's Spanish, so it is Spanish embargo. I understand what it means, but it's not English. Repossessed is the word.
Yeah.
repossessed. Mhm.
Shall we look at some more vocabulary?
Yep. So
What else we
first
got
of all,
here?
we're looking now at no, the vocabulary we had there was the vocabulary when we don't have money. Is that right?
Right. And here is
Uh-huh.
some more
Here's some more.
vocabulary
Okay.
connected to not
Not
having
having
money.
money.
So you can be in debt. We had that word before. If you owe money, you are in debt. If I borrow 100 euros from Lynn, then I owe her 100 euros. I am in debt to
Mhm.
her. So to be in debt or to be heavily in debt is to owe a lot of money.
Mhm. And then you can be overdrawn. Now that's to do with banks. So um, if you have your account and it can be in the red or it can be in the black. If it's in the black, it means you have money in the account. But if you have spent some money, or maybe you have some money that has been taken away from your account, and if you are in the red, you are overdrawn, which means that you owe money to the bank. The bank has paid money on your behalf, but you owe it to the bank. Uh-huh.
And to
You're in
cut
debt.
costs is the next expression, which means to reduce costs. So if you're cutting costs, that's possibly the best way or one way of increasing your salary. I mean, you have your income, you have your expenditure, the money that comes in to you, the money you earn, and also the money that goes out, the money you spend. So if you cut your costs, then your money goes further. So you're really earning more money, if you see what I mean. So sometimes if you find it hard, if you're finding it hard to make ends meet, to get to the end of the month, but you can't earn more money, then cut your costs, reduce the amount of money you're spending, or tighten
Now,
your belts.
or tighten your belt. Now, cut costs, you'll hear that in the company language, in business English. People talk about cutting costs. In private circles, you can also talk about cutting costs, but a lot of people say, I've got to tighten my belt. The belt is what you have to keep your trousers up around your waist. And if you have to tighten your belt, it means that you have to reduce your expenditure or cut costs. Mm-hmm.
And we spoke before, Lynn explained about being tight, a bit tight. Money's tight, not having
Money
a
is
lot of
tight.
money. If your budget is tight, then you have a restricted or limited amount of money to spend on something. So, for example, if you want to go out for a meal, go out for dinner, and someone suggests a 3-star Michelin restaurant that's really expensive, you might say, well, I'm sorry, at the moment I'm on a bit of a tight budget. So can we go to McDonald's instead? Because you can't spend a lot of money. You're on a tight budget, restricted money.
And then there are moments in your life where maybe something is costing you a lot of money, or you've maybe made an investment and it's not working, and you're actually losing money. So you can be losing money. I think that's pretty clear. But another way of saying I'm losing money is to say I'm bleeding money. And when you're bleeding money, it means you're losing a lot. The idea is that you've cut yourself and the blood is spurting out of your body. So bleeding money means a lot. You're losing a lot of money.
You often hear that in business, don't you? If a company's bleeding money, then they're spending a lot more than they're earning.
Yeah.
A business bleeds money.
And then again with this metaphors of like your body being tight and tightening your belt and bleeding money. When something is very expensive, we often say it's costing an arm and a leg. And the idea is that you have to sell your arm and you have to sell your leg in order to pay for this very expensive thing. So, for example, sometimes you could say, to give you a clear example, oh, my children's university and paying for them to live in Madrid, it's costing an arm and a leg, which means it's really expensive.
Javi said he's losing money and he's losing himself.
Stay with us, Harry.
Stay with
It
us.
gets better.
Don't get lost. It's only
Uh,
money. Someone said to
mm,
me once, money is replaceable. There are a lot more important things.
it
If you have
is.
those
There's,
basic things in
mhm,
life, if you have your home, if you have food on the table, then
mm.
money is replaceable.
I've heard the phrase "money comes and money goes." Hmm.
I've heard the
It
expression,
comes and goes.
money's round, it rolls away.
Oh, really?
It disappears. Coins around, they roll away
They roll
from
away,
you.
but they also roll towards you as well. So,
Well, so those are some expressions and vocabulary connected to not having money.
mhm.
Let's look at some others
Well,
now
before we do
that,
that, maybe, sorry,
yes.
Craig, before we do that, maybe we can ask a question and then it'll give you a chance to maybe type some answers in and talk to us. Have you
Okay.
ever had to tighten your belts? And if you have had to tighten your belts, when did you have to tighten your belts and how did you do it? Have we got any tips about how to tighten belts? Maybe you can think and write some ideas in the chat. In the meantime, Craig, I can ask you that question. Have you ever had to tighten your belt in your life? Have you had periods where you've had to tighten your belt?
Yes. Years ago when I was traveling
Hmm.
extensively, so traveling really for a couple of years actually, I didn't have hardly any money and I was
Hmm.
working and traveling at the same time. So I was on a really, really tight budget, a tight travel budget and just a tight budget generally. So I tightened my belt by sometimes only having one meal a day.
Mm.
And I tightened my belt by sleeping in very, very cheap accommodation and youth hostels. And I tightened my belt by not spending money extravagantly and just watching every penny because my
Mm.
budget was very, very tight. So for those 2 or 3 years while I was traveling, I did need to tighten my belt considerably. Yeah,
Mm.
and then I started to earn money in a steady job and I saved money and things got better. What about you, Lynn?
Mhm.
Have you ever
Well,
had to
funnily
tighten your
enough,
belt?
I have, and yeah, I mean, it's several times I think during my life, especially obviously when I was younger, when I was a student, when I travelled. Funnily enough, with your traveling anecdote, I'd forgotten that, but I remember once I travelled in America, and I was traveling not for 2 years, but just for a month. And me and my friend, we were also running very low on money. And I remember in the last week, we had to tighten our belts. And you said you had one meal a day. We
Hmm.
lived for one whole week. We had one jar of jam and one jar of peanut butter, very American. And we could only afford to buy bread every day.
Wow.
And we lived on peanut butter and
And
jelly
jam and jelly.
sandwiches. And I remember that the very last day when we were in New York, we also tried to travel at night to save money on the accommodation,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last 2 nights we were in New York and we had to pay for accommodation because we were a bit scared. It was a long time ago. New York was more dangerous then than it is now. And we knew we had to stay in accommodation. But I remember that we had only $2 for the last 2 days.
Wow.
That's all we had,
That's a
apart from the
very
accommodation being paid for.
that's a
So
very tight
that
budget.
was a
A very
really,
tight
really
budget.
tight budget then. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a
Having,
couple of comments in. Westcott
yeah.
says sunk cost is an expression of investments. I think
Ah,
investment, sunk
to
cost.
sink costs. Oh,
Well,
I
there's
don't
something
know what
called
that
the
is.
sunk cost fallacy. I was reading about that
Oh,
today. The sunk cost
what does that mean?
fallacy is not necessarily connected to finance, but it's when you invest a lot of time or money in something, and
Mm-hmm.
then you stubbornly insist on continuing because of what you've previously spent or invested. It's very common, for
Ah,
example, in the stock market,
mm-hmm.
you invest, you buy stocks, you buy shares, they drop, but
Mm-hmm.
you should sell them maybe, but you don't because you've already lost some money and you think, no, I'm not selling them because I've lost money. What's happened in the past shouldn't affect your decision. Or you started working on a project and it's not successful, but you've invested 2 or 3 months on this project. You keep going because of the time you've invested, not because of what might happen in the future. That's the sunk cost fallacy.
The sunk cost fallacy. Okay. Javi said he's had to tighten. I had to tighten my belt in the supermarket, choosing chicken instead of seafood. Yeah, those kind of choices I have experienced too, Javi. In times where I've had to tighten my budget, one of the easiest ways is on your food budget, so you can cut out luxuries or you try to eat cheaper food. Yeah, I've done that quite a lot.
Also from Turkey, the country's tightening our belts because of high inflation rate. That's happening in many places, Shada. That's happening all over the world, isn't it? The rich are getting richer, and the poor and the middle class are tightening their belts because the cost of living is increasing, but the salaries are not. It's becoming a big problem.
Yeah, and you're quite right that we often have to tighten our belts, even though we have the same income coming in. It's not like we've lost our jobs or anything, but we've kept our jobs, but our standard of living is decreasing.
Food's getting more expensive.
And we have to tighten our belts if we want to maintain where we are. Yeah.
Latifia said that when I got out of college, until I found a good job, it was tough. Yeah, those first few years until you get your foot on the ladder. Getting a job in Spain is difficult for young people. Yes, it is. There's lots of unemployment at the moment, which is bad.
Javi says, I definitely have some magic to make it with $2 in the US. I am talking about 1984. So that's quite a long time ago, Javi. $2 was worth more then, but still, it wasn't very much. It was very little money. You
can't buy a cup of coffee for $2 these days.
No, well, we didn't. I mean, we kept the $2, and I think we bought. I can't remember what we bought. I'm not sure.
Probably
we
pizza.
One hamburger. No, I think
pizza.
We bought one hamburger to share. I think that's because we were sick of the peanut butter and jam.
Okay, let's go to looking at some other vocabulary connected to having money. You can say that you're in the money, which means you have it. I'm in the money. I've got money. I'm flush, which means I've got money in my pocket. I'm doing okay. I'm okay. I'm flush with money.
I don't know where that expression "flush" comes from. Do you think it comes from poker? Because isn't there a certain amount of cards is a flush, isn't it, in poker?
Yeah. I'll Google it. I'll Google it while you're explaining the next one.
All right, because it's an interesting word, flush. Because flush, we know from flush the toilet, when you've been to the toilet and you press the button and the water comes in the toilet. That is to flush the toilet. So I don't know where it comes from for money, but I think it might have another meaning. Craig's going to look. So to make a profit, I think everybody kind of knows that one already. To make a profit is to make more money from something. And then we have some adjectives to describe when you have money. So a nice neutral adjective is to be comfortable. So do you have a lot of money? Oh, I'm comfortable. That's a little bit sort of ambiguous, So you're not telling people that you've got lots of money, but you're saying you're comfortable. It's nice. When we describe people as rich, it means they have a lot of money, but it's got an element of jealousy in it, don't you think? When people say he's rich.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a slight negative quality about the word rich. The word wealthy doesn't have that negative quality.
No.
Necessarily. So if you describe somebody as being wealthy, it's kind of a neutral description, right? You mean they have a lot of money, but it's a neutral description. But if you say, oh, she's rich, then it's almost a little bit like maybe she doesn't deserve that much money. Or
And
maybe,
and
I
loaded
don't
as
know,
well is
and
also
loaded as
similar.
well.
It has a negative connotation. Is oh,
Yeah.
she's loaded, or he's loaded. He's more money than sense, perhaps, that they've got
Or
too much money than they need. They're loaded.
exactly. So
You
you've
were,
got to be
by the way,
careful with rich and loaded.
you were
And some
absolutely
to
right,
remove
Lynn, when
the
you said
others.
about flush. It is connected to card games. I've put the explanation
Okay.
in the chat. It's a state of abundance or fullness, because
Ah,
it was used in card games to describe a hand where all the cards were of the same suit or the
the
same
same
type.
suit. So you have like all aces, or you
Hmm.
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a flush.
Exactly.
That's right. So it implies that you have a good hand of cards, which implies if you're gambling that you've got a lot of money. Mhm.
And the next one, if you have no money worries, you're doing okay. You're flush. You have no problems. You're not. It's not necessary to tighten your belts. You've got enough money. You have no money worries. Obviously, the opposite. If you have money worries, then you're worried about money.
And then these are just some prepositions that people often get wrong. So you pay in cash or you pay with cash. You can use either of those. You pay by card because that's the means by which you pay for something. Yeah, so you pay by card. And we pay for something when you buy something. So all of those prepositions are different. You need to learn those. There's no logic. I'm sorry. Right. So you pay in cash or you pay with cash, you pay by card or you pay for something. Right. So
So,
when you have money, here's another question now then. So when you have money, or an unexpected windfall. Now, a windfall is another word. Maybe you have to put that in the chat. I'm giving you all these words and they're not on the banners. Sorry. A windfall means you suddenly get money that you were not expecting.
like a tax
A
rebate.
windfall, like a tax rebate or a bonus from your job. So when you have more money or you get an unexpected windfall, what do you do? Can you tell us in the chat? What do you do when you get more money?
It doesn't happen often to
No.
me.
What about you, Craig? What do you do
Well,
when
I'm
you get
waiting for one. I'm
unexpected?
waiting for some money back from the from the Social Security man,
Ah.
from the office of the Social Security. So I'm waiting for a windfall.
Mm-hmm.
And what I probably, I'll tell you what I should do, and I'll tell you what I probably will do. I should probably save most of it for a rainy day. If you save money for a rainy day, then you put it to one side, maybe you invest it or put it in the bank in case of emergencies, in case you need urgently access to some money. That's what I should do. What I probably will do is spend it on a holiday. I think. So yeah, if I do
Yeah.
get that money, I will probably. It's unexpected, and I'll probably
Uh,
just enjoy it. What about you? If you have a windfall, what do you do?
I spend it on something.
Yeah, same as me. Yeah.
Because I do try to save money. So like generally every month I try to save money. So I have money for a rainy day. So and luckily at the moment, unlike the time when I was in New York, in New York I had no extra money, so it was impossible to save anything when I was a student or when I was younger. But now I am able to save, thank goodness, at the moment. So as long as I'm able to save, then if I get a windfall, I spend it on a holiday or something. Usually I spend it on an experience. I don't really like things so much, I've
Yeah.
got plenty of things now, but I would rather spend it on a holiday. Yeah, I think.
Here's another question for you. What's something expensive that you think is worth the price? And what about something that isn't worth the
Oh,
price? There's a question for you watching at the moment. Answer that by writing to us in the chat. Something expensive that's good value for money, you can say. If something's value for money, then it's worth it. It's worth the money you pay, and something that isn't, the opposite. What do you think?
Paola has written something about she spends the extra money traveling like us too, and sharing with my children. Yeah, of course. I mean, when I say traveling, it's not me going off on my own. It's like to try to travel with either to visit friends or to travel with my family. That's an interesting question. What is something expensive that you think is worth the price? Um,
Maybe.
I'm quite critical about things, and I'm a bit mean. And when I see the costs of things, I think I have a very clear vision of when I'm being ripped off. I don't know, we had some words, didn't we? Ripped off means like when I'm being, well, if I think that the price is not fair, it kind of bothers me. But I'm trying to think. Oh, I know what I do. What is expensive that I think is worth the
What's
price?
that?
I saw it today, actually. It is sheets for the bed.
Bed sheets.
Bed sheets. Now, the best bed sheets in the world are Egyptian cotton.
Egyptian cotton. Absolutely. 100%.
And they feel so lovely.
Like silk.
But they're very, very expensive. And I saw them in a shop today, and they were very expensive. like they're 6 or 7 times more than the price of a normal bed sheet. But I have to say that I really
Did you buy them?
I didn't, but I am contemplating going back and buying them. It said on the back of the packet that they would wash for 30 years.
Wow.
I don't know whether that's true or not.
Well, if it's true, it'll be a good investment.
I'm not sure whether I'll be alive to check it.
My grandmother used to say to me, you should spend a lot of money on your bed and on your shoes, because if you're not in one, you're in the other.
That's very true, isn't it?
Very true.
That is a true statement.
Actually, Paola was reading my mind, because I was about to say that a house is exactly what I was thinking, Paola, because if you buy a house, and I know it's very, very difficult these days because of house prices, but if you're paying rent, that money just goes every month and it never comes back to you. But if you have a mortgage, which is the money you borrow from the bank to buy the house, then at least, I know there's interest, but at least you're paying money that eventually, if you sell your house or you give it to your kids, that money comes back to you. So maybe that's something that's expensive, that's worth it.
Yeah. Unlike a car, of course.
Unlike a car, which is the opposite.
That's the opposite, isn't it? You buy a car and then it just
if it's new, a new car,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hema, I didn't know that. Hema has just shared with us that she has to be careful with money now as a recent widow. I'm very sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I
Hema.
didn't know about that.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Yes, I can imagine, because of course when you're used to a budget with 2 people and 2 incomes, and you're living in a house, and then suddenly there's only one of you, then of course that is a burden. It's not easy to get by when you've used to have been living with 2 incomes or however many people live together. That's true. But I think we're quite good as human beings. We can be quite adaptable, So maybe you'll find him some good places to tighten your belt, and then you won't notice them. I hope so. For you.
Let's look at some more vocabulary as we're finishing up here. So dirt cheap means very cheap. Dirt is found on the ground, it's earth, there's lots of it. So obviously dirt cheap is very, very cheap. And we had rip-off before, didn't we? Something
that was what I said.
If you get cheated, if someone cheats you, you get ripped off or you are ripped off by someone. And you can also use that as a phrasal noun. You can say it's a rip-off, which means it's not worth the money. It should be cheaper. It's too expensive. It's a rip-off. Don't buy it.
And then, okay, these are some adjectives that you can say. You can say it's good value for money. Oh, hang on. Oh, no, sorry. They're all alternative adjectives. Sorry. So you could say a good or a great deal. You can say this is a good deal or it's a great deal. You can also say it's a good or a great bargain. A bargain means that it's a find. You found this and it's a great bargain. Or you can say that something is value for money, which means that the money that you pay for it is worth it. It's worth the money that you're paying for it.
Then we got some verbs. You might know the verb to negotiate, which tends to be used a lot in business. You negotiate a business deal, for example. And if you negotiate over price, you can also use those other two verbs there to haggle and to bargain. Although they're more informal, you're more likely to bargain or haggle in a market if you're traveling, which is to negotiate the price, but in an informal way. So bargain, to bargain, to haggle, to argue or discuss the price in an informal way, to negotiate, basically.
And then some people don't like to spend a lot of money. And we've got some adjectives there for them. So you can be mean. That's very negative. So you don't like to spend money and other people think you're horrible because you don't spend the money. Mean. And it means it's the opposite of generous. You can be tight with money. Now, we had tight before, which just meant that you were short of money. And that was a neutral word to say, I'm a bit tight this month. But if somebody is tight, it means that they're mean, that they don't like spending the money. So then it's negative. As an adjective, it's negative. If you are stingy, it's also negative. But the neutral one is to be careful with money. So if you say, he's careful with money, that's not necessarily negative. Maybe he's careful with money because he hasn't got a lot of money. But if you're mean, tight, or stingy, the implication is you have the money, but you don't want to share it or spend it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's have another question, Lynn. Here's a good one here. What are some creative ways people can have fun without spending much money?
Oh, this is a good question. Everybody, you should give us your tips. Please give us your tips.
What do you think?
Because I think this is useful.
I mean, it's hard now. People are finding it difficult to make ends meet. We're tightening our belts. So let's try and think of ways where we can have fun, but without breaking the bank, without spending too much money. You know the first thing that came to my mind?
What was your... Go on.
Sex. It's cheap. It's cheap if you don't pay for it. It's cheap, and it's fun. And it's fun. Is that bad that was the first thing that came to my mind?
No. If you're lucky enough to have the right person, then I'm sure that's a very good way to spend time, have fun, and without spending too much money. Although, of course, you need protection, because if the consequences of that is a large family, then maybe you'll be spending more money than you thought.
Yes, maybe it's not the best investment if you're not taking birth control precautions.
Exactly.
It could be very expensive for the next 18 years, couldn't it?
Or more.
Or more in some cases.
Right. Well, my suggestion for a creative way to have fun without spending much money is actually to play games. I think a lot of adults don't play games anymore.
You mean board games?
All sorts of games, you know. I mean, like when my kids were small, obviously we played games with them and we played board games, but my kids are grown up now, but we still enjoy playing games. So there are board games that we play, like Scrabble and Rummy Cub and articulate. We love articulate. Cards. My daughters have shown us lots of card games. There's a lot of young people who haven't got money at uni and stuff, and they play a lot of card games. And there are some really good card games out there that are a lot of fun.
Yep.
And then there are lots of other games. You can find them all on the internet, like just silly party games, where charades, where you mime a movie, or there's that game where you put the post-its on your head, who am I? And people have to ask questions who you are. And I don't know. I mean, it passes the time, and people laugh a lot, and that's what you want, isn't it? When you want to have fun, you want to laugh. So you don't have to go to like a cafe or a restaurant necessarily to spend money.
You could go to the beach if you have one near you. You could go to the park or any green spaces and go outdoors, have a picnic. Go to the river, go fishing, something like that. Not expensive. Gather with friends. I would say get together with friends. Have an interesting conversation. Yes, that's cheap, isn't it?
Yeah,
get together with friends.
That's very cheap. And I think I do wonder, because we have access to so many other ways of supposedly having fun. Like, for example, I noticed that, we have streaming platforms, and often we're watching the streaming platforms, but we're not actually having fun, but we're wasting a lot of time.
Oh, yes.
Watching the streaming platforms.
And they're not cheap these days either.
No. Or I think I don't do this so much, but I know a lot of people do. They watch a lot of YouTube, and they're watching lots and lots of videos of YouTube. And I it's not that I'm against the videos on YouTube, because I think there's some really interesting videos on YouTube, like, of course, our classes.
Yes.
But
educational ones,
educational ones, yeah. But the thing is, when you consume too many of them, then it stops being fun, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. An idea from Shada that I quite like, and no, it's not silly at all, Shada. I think that's a very good idea, gardening. Because especially if you have a vegetable patch, and a vegetable patch is an area of your garden where you're growing your own vegetables, then obviously you can eat the fruits of your labor, so to speak. So you've got some lovely lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, potatoes, whatever you're growing, and it's a hobby, and it's fun, and it's good for your health as well. So
no, and I mean, it also leads, because I know a lot of my friends who've had little gardens or plots, usually they get too much of something at one stage. So they have too many lemons or too many oranges or too many tomatoes, and then they start giving them away to the friends, or they have like a barbecue, or and it's actually, I think gardening leads to a lot of social contact as well, because you're producing something. It's a great way to have fun.
Yeah, it's a good idea, Shada. There's a question from Nakemi who's asked about gather. That's a good question. I wouldn't, as a native speaker, use gather with my friends. I would say get together. It's a lot more common. However, you might find, or you might hear the word a gathering. You can say there's a gathering at the local church, or there's a gathering, or a get together also, but a gathering is probably more common than using the verb to gather. When would you use gather, though?
I think the verb to gather, sometimes the police use it when they say there's a group of people gathering in the square.
Coming together.
Means coming together. Conglomerating is another one. And we also gather flowers, don't we? When we pick up things if we pick things off the ground, we gather things, which means to collect, but not for meeting people. Like Craig says, get together is better.
And if you are a gardener, like Shada suggests, then you could gather your tomatoes when they're ripe, when they're ready for picking, and gather the vegetables from the garden.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I think we're more or less out of time, which is a shame. That went really, really quickly. I've missed doing this. It's good fun.
Yeah, and it's nice. Thank you
So
that everybody's come today for the first one back and
yes,
given us some ideas. But I would have liked more tips about how to save money. I think that's useful for everybody.
yeah. So we'll say goodbye, shall we? Do you want to remind people how they can get in touch, Lynn, if they're
It,
interested in private classes with you?
it's really easy. You just go to my website, putitlikethis.com, and there is a contacts page there. So you can contact me over the contacts page, and then I'll contact you. I'll get back to you, send you an email back. You can also find on my website details of the kinds of things I do. So that's the place to go if you're interested in having classes with me.
That's the place to go for private tailor-made tuition. But if you're interested more in conversation with a group of people, so group classes, then I have a website too. It's englishcraig.com. And I explain on that website all about the courses and also how you can get in touch with me for a free, no commitment consultation. So we'll jump on Zoom together. I'll explain the courses, find out more or less what level you have in English, and you can ask me anything you like. So englishcraig.com for conversation courses. Ingles Podcast is the name of the podcast I do with my friend Reza, and you can find that on the website or anywhere you listen to your podcasts, including Spotify. And if you happen to be a Spanish speaker, mansioningles.com is where you can go to get help with your English in Spanish. English in Spanish, if that makes sense. Anyway, thank you for spending time with us. It's lovely to have your company. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Is that right, Lynn?
Yes, that's right. 2 weeks, same time, same place,
Same channel.
same channel. And in the meantime, save lots of money, have fun, do things that are cheap.
Yep.
And enjoy yourselves.
Tighten your belt if you need to. Take care, everyone. See
All right
you
then.
soon.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.